Hi, so my name is Mara, and I am an archivist and assistant curator at the Air Force Museums of Alberta, which is located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We are a museum that specializes in the preservation history of the Royal Canadian Air Force, more commonly called the RCAF. Now, what is the RCAF? It was established officially in 1924, so we're coming up on our 100-year anniversary, and it has taken part in various conflicts such as the First World War, the Second World War, the Cold War, the Gulf War, and most recently the conflict in Afghanistan. They provide a variety of roles, such as aerial combat, bombing campaigns, surveillance and reconnaissance, search and rescue, and transport. So it's not just combat that they serve in, but support as well. And the royal comes from the fact that Canada used to be a colony of the British Empire and is still part of the Commonwealth, so it earns its royal moniker from that. The Navy and the Army are also known as the Royal Canadian Navy and the Royal Army, or Canadian Army. So that's just a little bit of background about the history that we're dealing with. But what do we do here personally at the museum? Well, what we do is we collect, maintain, and display the material culture of the RCAF. So this can include artifacts such as uniforms, flight helmets, even aircraft themselves. We have a number of aircraft from the Cold War era, so from 1950s thereabouts up into the 1980s. And we also have a lot of items, personal items, from servicemen and women who served in the RCAF during its history. This can include things like a straight razor, jewelry, teacups, commemorative plates, artwork that they either purchased or they created themselves, Bibles, housewife kits, which are like sewing kits that men used to use in the Second World War to like hem buttons and such like that. So it can be a lot of different things. It's not just airplanes, it's not just uniforms, it's anything that has to do with a person's service while they served for the RCAF. We actually really like the personal items more than the bigger things because it's more grounding. It makes you think about the individual involved rather than just the numbers. And especially with military history, you can get really wrapped up in numbers and statistics rather than thinking about the people who were involved, because there's a lot of people who were involved, obviously. In terms of archival material, this can mean photographs, documentation, letters and diaries, and other text-based images, or anything like on a piece of paper. That's archival material, essentially. And my job as the archivist and assistant curator is to accept donations, to conserve and to protect the material that we are given, and educate the public using said material. We wouldn't be a museum if we weren't out there to educate people and to share the items and the knowledge that we have. Without museums, people don't have access to some of these things, and so it's really important for us to keep them as they were, in the condition that they were, so that future generations can learn from the things that we had, you know? Sorry. So in order to make the history available to the public, however, we have a variety of different ways, which includes displaying the physical artifacts within our museum. So you come and you visit and you can see some of these items. Or you can come and go online and access our archival material on a digital database that we have created. And so this makes it so that anyone around the world can access what we have, which is really, really important because, as I said before, this is all about education. This is all about the dissemination of knowledge. And the more people who can have access to knowledge, the better I think our world becomes. So you guys can actually go to the website that we have and look at the photographs and look at the documents that we have housed physically here, but you can see it from where you are, wherever you are in the world. We're also trying to digitize our physical collection, so the artifacts that we have. How do we do that? Well, you can't see it because it's just off screen, but we have something called a light box. And what it is it's this big white box, and we have lights on either side, and it goes into the box, and it highlights whatever we have resting inside the box. And then we take pictures of it. So we'll put like a hat or a helmet inside this light box, turn the lights on, and it brightens it, and you can really see the details on this artifact. And we take the photographs, and then we touch them up a little bit in Photoshop to make it even easier to see. And then we hopefully, in the next couple of years, will be able to put these photographs online as well. So not only will you be able to access the archival material that we have, but you can also look at the artifacts that we have in the museum. A lot of it, not even the public who live here can see it because it's all in these cabinets behind me. We wish we could display everything that we have, but one of the big issues with museum curatorial work is you always have more stuff than your available space. So while we wish we could show everything that we have, and we have some pretty cool stuff, we just don't have the display space for it. So that's something we're always fighting. We get more material in than we can put away, but we somehow make it work. So my job is to take photographs of those items that we get in, as well as to digitize the archival material that we get. So how do you digitize it? Say we get in a photograph. We take the photograph and we put it in a scanner. And we scan it at about 300 dpi, so pretty good quality. Then I go into the photograph and I go into the metadata, which is like information housed within the file itself. And I will fill out what kind of information is pertinent to that individual photograph. Sometimes we know the names of people who are in the photos. Sometimes we know where it was taken, when it was taken. Other times we don't know anything. So sometimes the description will just be man in uniform next to statue circa Second World War. And that's all we know. Now, and then after that, I take that image, I upload it onto our online database, and hopefully people come and look at it. And they can have access to the information that we know about the image. You can also email us and we can send you higher quality images, but that does come with a service fee. So, I also transcribe written material, which means when we get stuff like letters or diaries, I will read through it and I will type it up and I will make it easier for people to consume. I'm sure as students who are learning a second language, handwriting is very difficult to read because everyone's handwriting is, unique to them. And even as a English speaker myself, sometimes someone's handwriting is just too confusing for me. But I try and muddle my way best I can. I transcribe it all. I put it onto a Word document where people can read it simply. And I do that for all the letters and all of the diaries and journals that we get in. And I also maintain personalized biographies of everyone who is in our archives. So if we know their history, who they were, even when they passed away or their birth dates, we put that all into a little biography, just 2 paragraphs long, so that we can keep track of all of these individuals. Because as I said, the individual is what makes history. And we want to know about them and we want to remember them. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what happens when we get an item in. So someone comes in and they want to donate a photo album like this. This is a photo album that we got in, and it's got photographs of this man's service during the Second World War, including written text saying where it was taken, who's in the photos. So this is really good stuff. So if someone wants to donate this to us, we say, sure. And then we get an accession sheet, which I had one and it just fell down and I don't want to go and pick it up but it's an accession sheet. And accessioning is how we catalog everything and how we keep everything tracked and organized. So the accession sheet includes information about the person who donated it, information about the items themselves, and information about the person who owned them. So the man who had this photo album, he didn't donate it himself, but his family members did. But his family told us about him. So we write that information down as well. Then we take it downstairs into our collections area, and from there, we put all of the information that we were given into an online database that we have for our personal use. And then we give these items a thorough description so we know what it looked like, what the condition was when it came to us. And then we give it an accession number, which is the year that it came in and correlating numbers so that we can find it again. So we'll say, oh, we're looking for this photo album, and then we find the accession number and we're like, oh, this is the one that matches to this file. And then we put it away after I digitize everything. And we put it in a fond box or a document case. So these are special cases that we buy. And they are acid-free paper, so it doesn't damage the materials. It also prevents light from getting in because light can damage materials as well. And we put the items inside of it. Some of them go into little baggies, plastic bags, others just as is. And they remain in here until we need to look at them again. Someone comes in who wants to take a look at them. But for the most part, we try and handle them as less as possible. We don't want to damage the paper. We don't want to expose it to any, substances that might be around, although we try and prevent any and all things that will damage materials because this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to preserve. And they go into a shelf in the corner of the office, and they remain there, safe and sound, and easily accessible online because of the earlier digitization process. So that's what we do at the museum, basically. We preserve the materials, we collect the materials, and we make them available to the public wherever the public may be. So like I said, you guys, if you wanted, you could go to our online archives. There should be a link on the website. Again, we are the Air Force Museum of Alberta. So if you're curious and you want to check them out, you can go to the archives, type in a name, maybe Ernest Reeve, R-E-E-V-E, and you should be able to see his diary. And that's what we do. So I wish you guys luck on your English exams. I hope that my accent is something that you can understand. And as I understand it, you're supposed to answer 2 questions. I don't know if your professor is going to ask you them personally, but I'll just ask them in the video real quick right now. So my 2 questions are, what do you think is the most challenging part of an archivist's job? And do you think that museums are important? If yes, why? If not, why? So good luck with your exams, and if you're ever in the Alberta area, come and give the museum a little visit. Thanks.